Nabila, c'est toi qui en as aujourd'hui? Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue dans la salle de presse de la Commission européenne. Merci également de nous suivre en direct sur Europe by Satellite. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes le jeudi 18 août. Nous avons quelques annonces pour vous aujourd'hui et je commencerai avec une annonce qui sera faite par Tim. Sur notre soutien à l'enquête menée par la Pologne et l'Allemagne à la suite de la catastrophe environnementale survenue dans le fleuve Oder. Tim.
Thanks, Dana. Good afternoon. As you know, the Commission is highly concerned about the environmental disaster that has come to light recently on the Oder River, where around 100 tons of fish have died from a so far unidentified cause or causes. Environment Commissioner Virginijus Sinkevicius has this week spoken to the environment ministers of both Poland and Germany, and the Commission officials are in contact with the national authorities on a daily basis. Establishing the cause and taking the most appropriate measures downstream is of utmost importance and urgency. It is essential that authorities cooperate with each other across borders to deal with this issue. In this context, we welcome the creation of a joint Polish-German expert group. The Commission, together with the Joint Research Centre and the European Environment Agency, is ready to make available as well our own experts. They will be able to work with the German and Polish specialists to establish the causes and also to identify ways to mitigate the impact of this disaster downstream. The sooner we can identify the cause of this ecological disaster, the sooner we can start to manage and limit the further consequences for nature, for fisheries, for agriculture and for recreation, both in Poland and Germany, and further downstream when the river flows into the Baltic Sea. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. I will call you back to the podium later if colleagues have any questions about this. In the meantime, I will give the floor to Balázs, who has an update on our support to the member states fighting against forest fires.
Effectivement, bonjour. Donc, alors que la saison des feux de forêt continue de faire rage en Europe, la Commission, bien sûr, travaille 24 heures sur 24 pour apporter son aide à ceux qui en ont besoin. Et maintenant, permettez-moi de partager quelques chiffres importants. Donc, jusqu'à présent, cet été, plus de 700 000 hectares ont été détruits dans l'Union européenne. Il s'agit là d'un record à ce stade de l'année depuis le début de la collecte des données en 2006. Néanmoins, malgré les incendies records, le degré de solidarité européenne est également très élevé. Jusqu'à présent, nous avons reçu 9 activations du mécanisme de protection civile de l'Union européenne et en réponse, la Commission a coordonné le déploiement de 29 avions, de 8 hélicoptères par l'intermédiaire du mécanisme et nous avons également affecté sur place près de 370 pompiers et plus de 105 véhicules à travers le mécanisme. À part ça, bien sûr, le système satellitaire Copernicus a été également activé, en fait, près de 50 fois par 15 pays au cours de l'année. Nous allons continuer, bien sûr, à surveiller la situation 24 heures sur 24 à travers notre centre de crise et nous allons faire de notre mieux pour mobiliser l'aide nécessaire.
Merci beaucoup, Balázs. And lastly, as you are very well aware, an EU-facilitated dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo is taking place in Brussels as we speak. The leaders of both countries, Prime Minister Vučić and Prime Minister Kurti, attend this meeting, which is chaired by the High Representative, Vice President Josep Borrell. The meeting will be followed by a press statement delivered by the HRVP, which should be starting as soon as the midday briefing has ended. In terms of housekeeping, our colleague Nabila will be moderating that press statement, which takes place in the EAS building, so that's why she will need to leave this midday briefing a bit earlier. This is why I actually invite you to start with any foreign affairs questions that you may have for her, to enable her to leave. Obviously, I invite you not to ask questions related to the EU facilitated dialogue, which is ongoing. We don't know what the result is. So you will have the press statement by HR VP Borrell, and we can go further with you on details of that at spokesperson level in the course of the afternoon through Nabila. So with that being said, I open the floor to your questions. So again, let's take foreign affairs, but not related to the dialogue. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Alexander Pohl from ZDF German Television. I have a question concerning Estonia. Estonia is denying Russians with a visa issued by Estonia an entry into the country. Many countries in the EU are thinking of following those steps, and I wanted to know what is the position of the EU Commission on that.
Thank you very much for the question. It's actually not a question for Nabila, but for Anita, but it's not a problem. I'm just checking rapidly if there is any other question for Nabila, who will need to leave shortly before giving the floor to Anita. And if you don't mind, I will take your question just after that, because in the meantime, I see Rosie with the hand up. So we take first the question from Rosie to free Nabila, and then we go to your question about visas. So, Rosie, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Rosie Burchard, for Feature Story News for Nabila. Several Palestinian NGOs labelled as terrorist groups by Israel say they've been raided by Israeli forces. Now, these are NGOs which are financially supported by some EU member states, and 9 EU countries recently released a statement saying they've not received any substantial evidence from Israel to back up these terrorist designations. Can you give me your reaction, the Commission's reaction to these events? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rosie. What I can say is that the EU takes note that Israeli forces closed, sealed the offices and confiscated property of the number of Palestinian civil society organizations. Civil society organizations play an important, essential role. Some of the NGOs concerned seem to have been those listed in 2021 by the Israeli authorities. Past allegations of misuse of EU funds in relation to certain Palestinian civil society organizations have not been substantiated, and the EU will continue to stand by international law and support civil society organizations that have a role to play in promoting international law, human rights, and the democratic values. The EU funding to Palestinian civil society organization is an important element of our support of the two-state solution.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions for Nabila? Rosie, you have a follow-up.
Follow-up. So these 9 EU member states that say they haven't received any information on Israel to back up these designations as terrorist organizations, can you just clarify if you've received any evidence from Israel to the contrary that would convince you of these designations? Thank you.
Well, Rosie, I will have to come back to you on this because I am not aware of what was said by some EU member states.
Thank you very much. Yes, we go ahead with questions. Michel.
Hi, thanks a lot. Michel Winder, German news agency DPA. I have got a somewhat similar question. Also on Palestine, I've seen Vice President Skinner's tweet yesterday on the remarks made by Palestinian leader Abbas earlier this week. I was wondering, will there be any consequences when it comes to the funding by the EU to Palestine? Do you consider something like that, or do you not? Thanks.
Thank you very much. This is a question which touches upon many points. So the matter on anti-Semitism, the angle on anti-Semitism is definitely something which is more for Anita. As for funding, I wonder if at this very early stage you have anything to add, any updates regarding funding? No, nothing to say at this stage, but Anita will be happy to cover the anti-Semitism angle a bit later. Anything else for Nabila today? Yes, Tom.
I've got a question on taxation.
Nothing for Nabila. So we continue. David, hoping that it's Foreign Affairs and for Nabila.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Is this working?
Can.
Okay, it's a question on sanctions. So there's a ship, a Liberian registered ship with a strange name, Aquaholic, carrying Russian coal that left from Murmansk. It's now in Rotterdam. So I was just wondering, is this a breach of EU sanctions, or did I miss something in the saving gas for winter, where there are some provisions on fuel switching? Is it still possible to import gas if you're switching to fuel and trying to save gas? Thanks.
I have to say, David, the connection was really bad, and I'm really not sure that we got the gist of your question. So if you do not mind, we can take this bilaterally after the midday briefing, because I just want to make sure that we understand what the question is about. So now I give the floor to Carlota, whom I believe also has a question for Nabila. After that, we open the floor to the visa question. Carlota.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm a reporter at the Swedish news site Europaportalen, and I had a question on EU aid to the Ukraine.
Yes.
So, it's a question on the new numbers published today by the Kiel Institute for the World Economics about aid to the Ukraine. And according to the numbers, the EU is far behind the US when it comes to support to the Ukraine. So I was wondering, what is the comment of the Commission on the fact that the EU is so behind in the support compared to the US, despite the fact that the war takes place in the absolute neighborhood of the EU? And I was wondering if the EU should give more.
Thank you very much for your question, Carlota. I haven't seen the numbers in question, and indeed, there are many reports and many analyses about the level of support provided to Ukraine. What I can tell you is first and foremost that the EU has stood by Ukraine in a number of ways, politically, economically, in terms of welcoming millions of refugees that have left Ukraine and sought shelter in the EU. According to the latest estimations that I have seen, more than 7 million refugees have crossed the EU borders and have found shelter in the EU, although some of them have returned home since. In terms of support, we have provided a wide ranging of financial support, being through macro-financial assistance or various direct grants. You will remember the pledging conferences that we have organized. The latest one was on the 9th of April, where we have raised 1.8 billion euros for supporting internally displaced people in Ukraine, and many more billions to support member states hosting the millions of Ukrainian refugees in the EU. We have contributed to further pledging conferences, including the pledging conference organized by the Polish and Swedish government in May. We have since announced our plan to provide an additional 9 billion euros in macro-financial assistance for Ukraine. The first tranches of this have already been delivered, and more will be coming soon. As you will also remember, the EU has provided for the first time support under the European Peace Facility, financial support to deliver military equipment to enable Ukraine to defend itself. So this is about support that was provided at the EU level. You have to look globally also, and when you talk about support provided by the European Union, you have to consider the EU level and also the support provided by member states individually, be that in military equipment or be that in grants or other forms of economic support which help Ukraine go through this extremely difficult moment, which was caused by this unjustified aggression of Russia. So we would be happy to present more broadly the strong, unfailing support that the European Union has provided at political, economic, financial, and all other levels, and including, let's not forget, the tough packages of sanctions that we have introduced to determine Russia to stop this unjustified war. Right. I think this is your question for Nabila, Foreign Affairs. Okay, so let's give a last chance to Nabila to answer this one, and then we'll go to visas.
Thank you. Lyubov Pronina from Bloomberg News. I have a question on Iran, whether there is any update on their response, anything that we're going to hear from the side of the EU. Thank you.
No, I'm afraid there is nothing I can add at this point on what I said last time on Iran. We're still at the same stage, and we're hoping for the best, I would imagine.
A short follow-up. Go ahead.
Tehran said that they expected some response within 2 days. Is that doable? Thank you.
As I said, also on Tuesday, I will not speculate, neither on timing nor on substance.
Indeed, that wouldn't be wise. Thank you so much, Nabila. So I think Nabila will leave us now to run to the ES building for the press statement which follows, and I will invite Anita to take the question on visa. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you so much, Alexander, for your question. Due to Russia's unjustified and illegal aggression towards Ukraine first and foremost, but also member states are facing unprecedented challenges. You are all familiar with the unprecedented action that we have taken to determine Russia to stop this unjust and unprovoked aggression. Now, when it comes to visas, the EU acted immediately and partially suspended the visa facilitation agreement with Russia already on 25th of February. In this regard, the Commission is promoting a coordinated response at EU level. And now discussions are taking place at the EU level with EU member states to update on the latest development and also ensure a coordinated approach. I would also like to remind that on the 30th and 31st of August, we have the informal meeting of Foreign Affairs Ministers, GIMNIC, which will take place in Prague, and the discussions there will also cover the issue of visas for Russians traveling to the EU. Based also on the latest information that we have received from member states, the visa activities have not stopped completely, and in particular, the humanitarian cases are catered for. And we continue being in touch with the member states, in particular, to collect the information. Moreover, Commissioner Johansson will be visiting Finland and Latvia in the first week of September in order to further discuss with the authorities and also understand the challenges on the ground. So to reiterate once more, our primary objective is to ensure that any measures that are taken are coordinated and promote our EU objectives.
Thank you. Sure. Let's go for the follow-up.
Thank you. So you said it must be coordinated, I understand, but how do you judge the actions that are going on now in Estonia? They are already denying those Russians entry.
Well, thank you, Alexander. I think I already responded in this regard in terms of the challenges, the unprecedented challenges that we are being faced with, both Ukraine but also the member states. And our response is clear. First and foremost, we're discussing with the member states. We have also issued guidance in May, also in response to the partial suspension of the visa facilitation agreement, to support member states in the implementation of the partial suspension of the VFA. So we are in touch with the member states. We're discussing at all levels, technical and political, and we're ensuring that we have indeed a coordinated approach.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Anita on this matter? I also watch the chat online to see if there are any questions there on the subject. No, I don't see any. So any other questions for Anita? I don't see any, so thank you very much, Anita. Are there any questions for us today on other topics? Already Tom was waiting for a long time. I know that his question was, I believe he said taxation, so yes. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, it's on taxation. It's on this German gas fee. As the Commission has refused that this VAT is not levied on this fee, the Commissioner Gentiloni has recommended several options for the same objective, and one of it is to reduce VAT on gas to 5%. Would this also be possible if the reduced VAT rate in Germany is 7%, or could the Germans only reduce this to 7%?
Thank you very much, Tom. Dan should be connected to take this question.
Indeed, thanks very much, Tom. Thanks, Dan. I hope you can see me and hear me all right. Let me just start off, Tom, by confirming that Commissioner Gentiloni did indeed reply to Minister Littner's letter yesterday regarding Germany's intention to introduce a gas levy, and in particular the question surrounding the application of VAT on this levy. Now, I think it's very important to underline that we are perfectly aware that all member states and consumers are faced with the impact of gas supply disruptions caused by Russia's war against Ukraine. That's why we share Germany's wish to avoid any unintended impact on the gas price that consumers pay from applying VAT on the planned levy. And as you point out yourself, Tom, the Commissioner himself suggested a number of different avenues, a number of different options and solutions that Germany could follow up with that is in line with the amended VAT directive, all in all to minimise the impact on consumers. I think, of course, as I said on Tuesday, we are willing to engage further with the German authorities on this, and that is something that is important to point out. On your second question, or on your actual question, indeed it is possible to apply reduced rates to energy prices of a minimum of 5%. Of course, there are some conditions attached to that. I don't have the overview of Germany's specific VAT rates right in front of me, so I will check that and come back to you. But I can confirm that under the new amended VAT directive, it is possible to apply VAT rates as low as 5% on these particular products, yes.
Thank you very much, Dan. Are there any additional questions for Dan on this subject? Yes, go ahead, Alexander.
Yes, there was a breaking news just now that Germany just lowered the VAT to 7%, what he just said. So I just wanted to have a comment from him of this is in line of the EU regulations then.
Thank you so much for the question. We would be ill-advised to react to breaking news which happened during our midday briefing without seeing ourselves the announcements and the details of that. But I still give the floor to Dan to see if wisely and cautiously he has anything to say.
No, indeed, Dan, I think I'd be fired if I gave any comments on something that happened while the midday was ongoing. So let me check, and of course we can come back to you, Alexander.
We will need to look at the announcement to see what it is, and then we would be very happy to provide a reaction. Karl, about the same topic.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's the same question as last Tuesday. It's do member states, can member states lower the VAT rate as they wish, or do they need approval by the ECOFIN Council?
Thank you, Karl. So it's a procedural question as far as I understand it. Dan, do you have the answer handy to that one?
Karl, yes, this depends on the type of product and the type of sector involved. So I can send you information on the full procedures that would be required there, yes.
Any other questions for Dan on taxation? I don't see that. I see that David has his hand up, and as far as I could gather, his question pertained to sanctions, so it could be for Dan. So, David, if you sorted out your mic issue, let's give it another try.
Yeah, it's okay. Can you hear me?
With interruptions, so let's give it a try.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
It's somehow better, I hope, but let's see.
Okay, the question concerns the import of Russian coal into Rotterdam. So there's a ship there that left Murmansk a couple of days ago, and it's now in Rotterdam. Is that allowed? I mean, I know the exemption ran out on the 10th of August, but we have a series of measures on fuel switching, facing the winter. Is there any new provision that we don't know about that allows that, because we're facing a gas cut from Russia? Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. Yes, indeed, that would be for Dan, though not sure he can say much in relation to this. Dan.
Indeed, thanks, Dana, and thanks, David, for your question. Indeed, there is an import ban on all forms of Russian coal. This affects around a quarter of all Russian coal exports, which I think we said at the time amounts to around €8 billion of a revenue loss for Russia each year. As you pointed out yourself, David, there is a wind-down period, which at the time was 4 months and indeed ended on the 10th of August. But importantly, the implementation of sanctions is for member states, so any sort of question like this should be directed to the member states. As you know as well from the podium, we don't comment on specific scenarios. I obviously don't have all of the information in front of me, so for those two reasons I would keep it there, and I wouldn't want to go further into the specifics.
Thank you very much, Dan. Are there any additional questions for Dan on sanctions? I don't see any, so thank you, Dan. And now I'm able to open the floor to any other questions that you may have for us today. And I see that Maria has her hand up. Maria, go ahead.
Oui, bonjour, j'espère que vous m'entendez et que vous me voyez. Merci beaucoup. J'avais une question en matière de santé. Je voulais savoir quelle était votre évaluation de la situation concernant la variole du singe et connaître aussi le rôle de HERA en la matière. Je ne sais pas s'il est possible de refaire le point sur les chiffres de vaccins qui ont été achetés et s'ils sont considérés suffisants, et sinon, voilà, combien est-ce qu'on compte encore en procurer. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Maria. Ce sera le plaisir de Johannes de prendre cette question. Cette semaine, il remplace Stéphane. Je pense que déjà la semaine dernière, on a discuté à ce sujet avec des chiffres et j'espère qu'il aura tout ce qu'il lui faut.
Merci beaucoup, Dana. Merci beaucoup, Maria. Bonjour. Écoute, je peux faire le point. On a aussi des livraisons que je peux peut-être envoyer plus tôt, parce que c'est plutôt en forme de tableau, donc bilatéralement. Mais comme tu sais, HERA a acheté plus que 160 000 des doses des vaccins de monkeypox pour les États membres. Le variole du singe, merci, tu viens de le dire. Et les livraisons ont commencé assez rapidement, ça c'est quand même important à souligner. Donc il y a plusieurs États membres qui ont déjà reçu des livraisons, comme l'Espagne, l'Allemagne, le Portugal, la Belgique, l'Italie, l'Irlande, la Suède, l'Autriche, la République tchèque, Chypre et d'autres. Et donc il y a des livraisons qui sont en cours, hein, donc il y a quasiment tous les jours, il y a d'autres livraisons qui arrivent et qui sont préparées, donc les chiffres changent de jour à jour. Et il y a aussi deux joint procurement procédures qui concernent les therapeutics pour les cas sévères. Donc là aussi, c'est en cours. Donc je peux peut-être encore ajouter que EMA et HERA sont en permanence, en fait, veillent sur la situation et regardent les développements. Et donc, nous sommes prêts à, si tu veux, accélérer et augmenter tout ce qui concerne genre production de vaccins, therapeutics et d'autres mesures. Et donc, laisse-moi vite fait vérifier le tableau où on est avec les livraisons. Donc, voilà, donc il faut que je fasse le calcul là, parce qu'il y a plein de chiffres. Donc, c'est un peu difficile de faire sur le podium comme ça. Mais voilà, donc je pense que je préfère t'envoyer le tableau. Mais on a fait le calcul hier, je regarde ça dans les 50 000, 55 000, c'était ça, autour de ça. Donc, légèrement en dessous des 60 000. Mais je vais te fournir le tableau exact, parce que c'est plus possible. Merci.
Voilà, merci. À la place de faire des calculs rapides et approximatifs sur le podium, on va t'envoyer les chiffres une fois qu'on a fini le Midday. Merci beaucoup, Johannes. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions à ce sujet? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Victoria English at Mednaus. I'm aware of Bavarian Nordic being an important supplier. Are there any other important suppliers here that you're talking with?
This is the company, indeed, with which the purchase has happened. I'm not aware of any specific conversations with other suppliers. We're happy to check to see whether we can give you any information on this. But in general, of course, HERA is looking at the situation, and the experts would certainly look into this, but I have no specific information to share on this topic.
Thank you, Johannes. Stephanes, I wanted to say. Are there any additional questions for Johannes today? I don't see any, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on other topics for us today? Yes. I see that David's hand is up. David, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for the questions. It's for Tim. It's on the saving gas plan again. Could you just confirm there's no treatment of fuel switching if you switch to coal instead of gas under the ETS, which would be zero emissions? Because there was mention in a previous draft that this could be for refineries or some specific things, but under any case, there won't be any treatment of fuel switching to zero emissions. Could you confirm that, please? Thanks.
Thank you. Tim.
Hi, David. Yeah, I got your question, and I'm reconfirming with our experts. But yeah, we would always urge you to not fall into the trap of relying on draft documents, which you might have seen earlier versions of whatever communication which the Commission might be working on. But, you know, the ETS system is in place, and fuels, emission allowances need to be purchased as usual.
The only documents that exist and we discussed from our point of view are the ones that are adopted, and nothing which would be part of any preparatory work. Anything else? I don't see any other questions for Tim today. I'm checking if there are any other questions for us today on any other topics. Yes, Carl.
It's a follow-up on Balázs's announcements on the forest fires with the figures that were impressive. I wonder whether the Commission is preparing recommendations to the Member States on how to manage their forests and on what species to replant after the fires.
Thank you so much. I wonder if Balázs has any information about this very, very important topic.
Very important question there, although it might be a bit outside my portfolio. So Sonia, who is not here, or the person replacing her could be of more use than me on this big question. But let me say a few words in terms of where we are and what we are doing. So we see a year of records. So since 2006, we've been collecting data, and up to this point, so up to 18th August, we never had such a big territory destroyed by wildfires. The reaction to that has been also rather positive this year. We've been able to mobilize help when it was needed. We received 9 activations of the mechanism until now. Just to give you a sense of comparison, last year throughout the whole season, which goes from May until October, we got 8. So we are far from the end, and we already surpassed the figures from last year. So on every single occasion, we were able to deploy firefighting airplanes, helicopters, ground forces, and also forest fighting vehicles on the ground. So despite the massive challenge that has come in our way this year, I think our reaction has been rather rapid and significant. And we will certainly continue to keep an eye on this dossier in the coming weeks and months. As I said, we expect, of course, for the further forest fires, they can occur all the way up to October, in a sense. So in the operational sense, this would be my short summary. And also, I should add that in the long term, we are looking to boost our capacities. Now we have a reserve of 12 firefighting airplanes and 1 helicopter. But I think there is a clear need to go beyond that and boost these capacities. We will be making available funds in the coming years to purchase new aircraft, which will be stationed across the EU strategically so that we cover all corners of Europe. And of course, operated by member states, but purchased based on EU funds. So this is the direction in which we work in the operational sense. But in terms of what we do with areas which have been destroyed, it will be Sonia or Johannes who will have more precise information on this.
Thank you, but I do not have that Johannes has that information spontaneously. So if we have anything else, we will come back to you. Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions for us today? I don't see any, so thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. Don't forget this press statement by HRVP on the results of the EU-facilitated dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo, and see you next Tuesday.